a building is based on the value of its leases. Every lease is an agreement between a tenant and a landlord. So today, we're going to talk about the tenant and the landlord perspective. In other words, what do tenants want and what do landlords want? So let's look at the tenant side first. What do tenants want? One thing is parking. I know parking is so important to tenants sometimes. When they go in and they drive after an hour, they want to make sure they get their parking spot. But I don't think it's number one. How about views? I've had clients that the view from their office was so important to them, but it's definitely not near the first most important thing to look at. What about the building? I want to be in a prestigious building. I want the best building in the city. That's an important consideration. How about design? We've all heard this one. I want the open concept. I want white with glass and everyone's could share collaborative workspaces. That's very common. You hear that one today. How about location? We all know this business is about location, location, location. Is this the number one thing that tenants want? There's still two more here, so let's see what they are. Tenants want to know that we understand their business. Where did this come from? Where I used to work, they went out to all the tenants and they asked them, what is it about us brokers that upsets them or is important to them? The number one thing that they found was the tenants saying they wanted to know that we, the real estate agents, understood their business. Although they felt this was number one, I don't agree. I've done business all over the world. I've dealt with all kind of tenants in good buildings and bad buildings. I mean, bad is C quality buildings, A quality buildings, and no matter what building they were in, they all came to me, and I really looked down into it. They wanted lower rent. So there's a big difference between these two, and I believe the lower rent is the number one item. Let's look at business. Understanding your business. You can never truly understand their business. They will always know their business better than you could. So it's almost a danger to think that you understand their business well. All these things are important, but always go through the mindset. What they're really looking to do is get lower rent. If my rent's $40 a foot and you do a deal with them and get them in at $38 a foot, you've done a good job. You've saved the money. That's what business is all about. We're all in the business of making profits. Tenants want you, the real estate expert, to help them achieve lower rents. So now let's look at the other side of the coin. What do you think landlords want? Well, one thing that landlords like is low capital costs. We don't want to have to spend money fixing up our building. Whoops. Okay. We're going to have to fix that. So let's go through them. Good expiry profile. Well, what an expiry profile is when different tenants expire at different times. That's the expiry profile for a building. Important for landlords to know they don't want all their eggs in the same basket. They don't want all their tenants expiring at the same time. Often, landlords will ask for a different term, let's say a 7-year instead of a 5-year, or a 10-year term, and maybe an 8-year term. They're trying to manage their expiry profile. Long terms. A good tenant there for a long term is better. They can get better financing than if it's there for a short term. There's less risk. How about minimizing costs? Building efficiency is very important. Do they have a low gross up factors? Do they not use much energy there? These are savings for the building, and that could transfer into savings for the tenant, and the tenant then could pay them higher net rents. The goal for all landlords is to maximize their rents. They're looking to maximize net operating income and get higher rents. This is very true, but unlike the tenant, which is very important, tenants always look to get the lowest rent possible. Landlords looking to get the highest rents possible is not the number one item. As a landlord, the number one thing, one of the main things that I look to do is I want to know who the tenant is coming into my building. More important than the rent, as a landlord, I want to know the tenant coming in is the right tenant. The number one thing all landlords want is they want to have a full building. So let's look at the landlord's point of view. And we know that landlords want to maximize their NOI. So going back to a previous episode, we know that the value of the building equals the net operating income, or NOI, divided by the cap rate. So what's going on here? The purpose of this slide, the big takeaway, I want you to realize that in good markets or in soft markets, landlords will look to keep the net rents or the net operating income of the building always going up. They want to keep it high. So a typical situation in a good market, let's take, we're in Toronto right now. Let's look at Toronto. Office deal, net rent is $40 per square foot. Landlord will give you maybe some $5 a square foot for your paint and carpet, and perhaps a free rent of 1 month if you're lucky. So the net effective rent on that deal will be $37.91. Now let's take a fictitious view of the future. Let's say things soften, the market went down. Here's the big point, everyone. In commercial real estate, those landlords, they do not want to drop that net rent. Sure enough, the market dropped. They went to $40 a foot. The tenant inducement they would give, or tenant allowance, would be $25 a square foot. Perhaps you get 3 months free rent or more. This deal, the net effective rent is $31.23. So here you have a market that went down from 38 to 31, but the asking rent and the net rent didn't drop. So be very careful when you use your MLS, or you go on these websites and you see asking rents and you ask tenants what their rent they're paying, and they tell you $40 a square foot. That's not telling you anything about the market. You know very little, actually. You got to find out comparables. You got to know what's happening in your market. You have to know what landlords are doing as far as inducements in order to properly advise your client on where the market's at. So let's now talk about the difference between the net effective rent and the face rent or net rent. Always, and the main takeaway from this slide, I want you to remember this. This is very important for everyone. A tenant will always do better with representation than negotiating on his own. What's the reason for this? It's very simple, everyone. You do better for the tenant the more alternatives he has. Simply said, the landlord will do better with a tenant if they don't have alternatives. So I've been a landlord. I'll tell you, this is exactly what we do. This is real. I go to my tenant. I said, you know what? Don't hire Joe the broker, because you do a deal direct with me. We've known each other for a long time. The $5 a foot I would have paid Joe, I'm going to take it off your deal. You're paying $20 per square foot now. I take off $1 a foot per year. I'll give you a deal today at $19 a foot. This works with tenants. They understand the relationship with the landlord. They know you as a broker are going to get money. So why give it to a third party? I may as well save it myself. This is a mistake. Tenants make this all the time. Same situation, and this is real life. This deal happened. A deal with an agent. So it's a 40,000 square foot tenant, 2 floors, and instead of doing a deal at $20 a square foot, the market was at 16. The brokerage fee was 5. That tenant negotiated was going to leave the building unless we, as the landlord, agreed to drop his rent to market. I knew I had to pay the broker his fee, so we ended up doing a deal at $17 a foot. The tenants save $2 a foot. That's $80,000 a year. And as far as the value, so let's take $80,000 a year in savings, and we cap that out at 5%. That's $1.6 million saved because he used an agent. This was well worth your fee of $200,000. So always remember, everyone, get out there, do some deals, and always remember, look at the other person's perspective. For the next episode, please join me. We're going to talk a bit more about this. I'm going to look at what it takes to be a good tenant rep, what it takes to be a good landlord's rep, and what it takes to be good in investment sales. Thank you.